Oh,
Hello to the universe that is listening to us right now. My name's Steven and this is Chris. We both work for a company called OpenLMS. You may have also seen us now and again over at our former company, LMS Pulse. And we're here to have our OpenLMS community office hours, which we're doing every week because we wanted to provide our community with the opportunity just to have some live Q&A, some opportunity to connect with not only one another, but with us, put their questions out there. We probably, that's not a good way to put it. If we can't answer your question, other people can, especially within OpenLMS, the OpenLMS team. But in our community, there's like almost 2,000 people in this community. And, e-learning and distance learning, remote learning, however you want to think about it. If you have a remote team, this is like the hottest topic of the last 24 months, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Even with the, up and down of the pandemic, this has just become the normal. This is normal. So, how do we do learning better from, kids in K through 12 to adult learners who are senior in your company? We want to talk about it. We want to talk about instructional design. We want to talk about, the back end, the nuts and bolts of ed tech, your learning management systems, apps, whatever. How do you deliver instruction better? Come. So if you're live with us right now, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, even if you just want to say hi, I'd like to know who's out there. Anyway, Chris, why don't you say hello?
hello. Hello, everyone. And I'm actually really excited. That was from Zapier, right? And
So I was actually just talking to Chris before we went live, and because he got this little thing, he sent it to me from the Zapier conference last year, which was a very nice little thank you gift. Thank you so much. I love these little mugs.
Zapier is not a sponsor of us, and actually,
we have no connection with Zapier at all, actually.
Yeah, but I appreciate the fact that you can give a really honest and sometimes like harsh opinion of an event or something, and they will still honor your chances to get one of those.
Did you give a harsh opinion?
Giveaways. Not necessarily about Zapier, but I have.
Oh, good.
And I have been rewarded just as the same.
Well, that's cool. I'm really excited. This is like a foreshadowing, but I interviewed an individual, or a gentleman named Mike Taylor this morning. He's got about 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. He's been around the education and technology and design universe for quite a while. He says that that's where he operates in the intersection between education, design, and technology, right? That's where his sweet spot is. But we spent an awful lot of time. Well, his episode coming up in March sometime is about no code. So these apps that do not require technological knowledge or sophistication on the user's part, but they offer really powerful solutions. And Zapier, you're happier with Zapier. That's what he told me. Happier with Zapier, right? Zapier is one of the key examples about, moving people from, when they sign up in a forum, how you move them into your email list, or when you want to automate a task in terms of people signing up for your class, or, posting grades, or those kinds of things. But he took us through a bunch of different examples and whatnot. Really, really cool conversation. I'm excited for. I guess it's going to be released probably in the middle of March now. So.
Yeah, I think it does remind me of the things we were talking last time, of like this plug and play world, looking ahead beyond the plugin, beyond the API, even though those are cool, but if we can make it even easier for people to just make Legos out of their content, it's much better.
I think if somebody needs to quote you on that, make Legos out of your content. That's a nice one. I like that. Yeah, and what I like about it as well is that it continues the path of demystifying the technological universe. It's still so often that you hear someone say, hey, I really like to do that, but I'm not an IT expert, at least in my universe. I hear that a lot. And to put these tools in the hands of people so that they can accomplish time-saving things that they can accomplish. Like one of the apps that Mike was talking about, you can put information into a spreadsheet and it will essentially create a website out of it just by reading the spreadsheet, and it'll organize the information, make it look really nice graphically and whatnot. It's pretty, it's super amazing, right? So anyway, but I know that we didn't come here today to talk about that particular podcast episode. Let's introduce everybody as well, though. If you are here for our office hours, we want to remind you that our designer session for the eLearn Success Series, our first session, is coming up on February 23rd. Now less than a month away. Holy smokes. Which is fantastic. We have a really cool lineup of speakers. And I want to give a shout out to some of our sponsors there. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
So, sorry.
We were mixed in there.
We're live without a net here, folks. We just, we don't practice these things. We don't rehearse. But again, that just remind you, we are live. So if you want to chime in, I'd love to, say hello. I'd love to hear who's out there. And if you have a question or if you have a comment or a challenge, put it in the comments. We do see them. So I want to give a shout out to our sponsors right now. IntelliBoard, not only long-term partners of us over at OpenLMS, but also, just a fantastic data science solution for the e-learning community. And then the folks over at Open Sesame as well. And I also want to give a shout out to eLearn Magazine, which, full transparency, they are part of the OpenLMS universe, but they, think of them as like the Atlantic or like the New Yorker or whatever other type of long form, in-depth type of journalism that you enjoy in your life. Rather than sort of snippets and little tiny, micro bites about what e-learning is. These are like full scale interviews and thought pieces about how to do e-learning better and how to make e-learning more effective and robust. So go check out eLearn Magazine as well. But most importantly, go get your free ticket to the designer session at the eLearn Success Series. And that's just elearnsuccessseries.com. That's all you have to do. What else do you have in that slide? What was the next slide? Oh, our speakers.
Our speakers confirm. Yeah.
You want to talk about them? Or you want me to talk about them?
You can go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Many of them are just like friends of the show, I want to say. We've met them a few times before. We've talked to them, interviewed them. They've been on podcasts, on hot seats, things like that. So there is this part that is like a commonality or this.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also the big stars.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and the big stars are Michelle Ockers and Jane Bozarth there. Michelle is with Learning Uncut, super well-known individual who has been making waves in the eLearn universe for a long time, but she's just a powerhouse. And I'm really excited to have her as our keynote. And our opening presenter, our feature presenter, Jane Bozarth, who is with the Learning Guild. She is the head of research at the Learning Guild. And she's going to be talking about some really, the evolution of instructional design, but that profession, about what's it take to be a successful instructional designer, not only today, but sort of for the next 12 to 24 months, so I'm really excited to see what she's got data. You know what I mean? They have some pretty intense survey data that they've put out there. And so she's going to be putting that on the table, which is exciting. And Michelle Ockers is going to be talking about what the corporate community or what the business community, the private sector, is looking for from higher ed, right? So usually, we have adult learners that go from the university or the higher ed universe and they go into the corporate universe. And one of the mashups and kind of things that have been happening over the last 24 months is that's really been shaken up. So she's going to be talking about that intersection, which is exciting. Hitakshi, she works with Priceline. She's a learning designer at Priceline. I'll be interested to see what kind of case study she puts on the table there about how to do instructional design better. Justin Reinert with MOB. Again, I don't want to spoil, I don't want to give away the thunder of everybody's talk. We have Ted Curran, who has been a friend of ours for a long time, always does a fantastic job, puts something really super tangible on the table that you can kind of walk away with and use tomorrow. I know that he's going to be doing something cool in Keynote or PowerPoint about how to automate that and move that into your design really easily. He's with Autodesk. Phil Miller, who's our executive director of OpenLMS, he's going to be talking. Oh, what, Ted? What?
About Ted, don't forget that he's the reigning champion of music trivia at
It's
at
true.
the event.
He did throw down in last year's summit. And I mean, if every time we record a session with him, or I record a session, he's got all his guitars in the background, which makes me really jealous too. But we'll see. And then Mark Pari, he's going to join us from Australia. And have we just, yeah, you know, I think he's going to talk about timeless design, but I could be wrong. He may change that. We'll see. I know that was your favorite one.
Yeah, I like that word, timeless, and yeah.
And there's two other speakers that are going to be joining us as well. We're just kind of getting their information put together and put in there together. But unlike the summits from the years past, rather than giving 70 speeches that kind of go over 3 days, we have pared this down into a nice 7-hour session that is going to be really super focused on design and how we create effective and engaging courses and classes. And each of these sessions are not only going to be live, but they're going to also include Q&A for the community. So I'm pretty excited about how this is going to work out. So any thoughts? Anything you want to put on the table, Chris?
That this time we have breaks.
Oh, that broke up. Say that again.
That we have breaks. This
time. That's right. In the Success Summit last April, we did actually, I think, go 72 hours without any breaks.
Yeah.
72 hours, folks. 72 hours. But yeah, this year we definitely have breaks put in so you can talk to our wonderful sponsors, or you can network with other people in the community. And we also have a nice big fat half-hour break for people to get up and walk away from their desk for a bit and whatnot. So super cool. Remember, tickets are free. Go join. What's next?
Schools of thought. Are you familiar with the Cunningham Law? I don't think it's like an actual rule, like something that people say about it online.
Is that like Moore's Law?
Kind of. No, it's no, not really. The Cunningham Law says, I mean, I don't know. At some point in our discussions, I was thinking like, I mean, we kind of have an idea what instructional design is, but in terms of like outcomes, and actually it was this email with Mark about timeless design, and it made me think of some schools of design that have been in history. And I wonder, are there schools of e-learning design or instructional design? And I really had no idea. And I started to look into some things, and I'm not sure if what I found is actually what should be. But Cunningham's Law says that the best way for you to get the right answer for what you're looking for online is not to ask people what they want, but to post the wrong information, and people will automatically correct you.
Ooh, that almost sounds like the Wikipedia law. Isn't that like, I mean, there's like Wikipedia, like not trolls isn't the right word because they're actually a force for good. They are, there's people monitoring like Wikipedia, and there are, obviously it's a community of non-paid individuals. But if you like put something up there that is incorrect, man, you will get corrected fast. I think some people like they do that on purpose so that they see how quickly something gets corrected. Well, that's cool. Cunningham's Law. I didn't know that. Yeah.
So I guess we should try it. To think about what are sort of the schools in instructional design, and I don't know, maybe if nobody comments or if nobody contradicts me, it means that I'm perfectly right.
All right, let's see. So yeah, if you're out there listening live right now, now's your chance to take Chris to task on what it is.
Anyway, so
wow, well, you realize B.F. Skinner, man, holy smokes!
Yeah, I mean, what you realize first is that it's e-learning design is not really, doesn't have these sort of strong schools like you have in design or in art or in architecture or even in psychology, for one. And the other is that it's sort of a mix-up of several sciences, right? You got, well, the technology, but you also have psychology, of course, and other other stuff. So it's like an alloy
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the science. So it was really surprising to see Skinner here. So because he actually was one of the first people who started giving people guidelines as to how educational content should be written and laid out. So I thought that was interesting.
That is super interesting. I would never have guessed. Cool.
And yeah, I think he's still like a very controversial figure, right? In some circles. But I think he was ultimately, I don't know, well intentioned about his thoughts. And there's a lot, kind of like Freud, like people criticize him more than they understand.
And do you think was he controversial because of like research ethics? Is that what you or what?
Mm-hmm. That's one thing, yeah. And the
Quite
other
honestly,
thing is,
I don't know. You're calling me out on my knowledge of science history here.
Yeah, exactly. Social science. I don't know much about it either, so happy to get help from whoever is
Just
listening
say
now.
if you're out in the audience now, take us to task on B.F. Skinner. Who's next?
The next one is some guy called Benjamin Bloom.
Oh, well, Bloom's taxonomy, of course. We hear about this all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but what you see is that Skinner is more. It is a instructional designer guide, so he gives guidelines. And this is a guideline too, but I see it more as the more macro, if that makes sense. Like it's not so detailed as to what to put, I think Skinner's guides were more into the details of how content should be laid out and so on. And I think the Bloom taxonomy, which starts at the bottom of sort of knowledge, it's based on outcomes mostly. So the according to Bloom, the first test or the first outcome or the easiest outcome of design, instructional design, is knowledge. And we go all the way until comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. I wonder how, I think, I see that pyramid mentioned constantly, but I'm not sure how unanimous it is, this idea.
I think it's fairly, I mean, I've posted about this quite regularly on LinkedIn and in other places as well, that, Bloom's taxonomy is one of those core theoretical underpinnings that you really need to know as an instructional designer. I mean, this is a very well accepted piece of the puzzle. Yeah, piece of the puzzle when you are creating learning content. So, or creating those. What is it that you want to achieve in terms of your outcomes? Are you just trying to impart knowledge, or are you actually really, leveling up learners to have those deeper outcomes, or those more comprehensive outcomes like analysis and synthesis, right?
Yeah. And I think something that doesn't happen, or I didn't find when I was looking into this, is how when you talk about art, for example, you see that usually a new art movement tends to be like a reply or a challenge to the existing standards of art or aesthetics even. And sometimes they are very effective and sort of dismantle a whole lot of ideas, but sometimes there is like this struggle, this aesthetical struggle as to what is best. And I think we don't have something so conflictive, because those debates between art schools, they could get like really heated. I don't see that too much in e-learning design, but I do see how some parallel ideas or opposing ideas try to like fight and find a place. But it's not, as I said, not as confrontational. So that's why you don't see a bunch of teachers with shirts banning Bloom.
Sure, of course, absolutely.
Like This next one is it's a take much more detailed component display theory. Apparently, this guy created like about 100 categories that you can use to measure the content. And it's called Cognitivism, if I remember right, because it's based on what you want to get out of the student, but like what kind of behaviors do you want to encourage or not. So I would say it's strongly psychological. And I do see it mentioned, not as much as Bloom, to be honest. But I don't think they are, I think they can coexist.
Okay. Are you going to throw Kirkpatrick's in here as well?
Oh my God, I don't have Kirkpatrick here.
No, he's one of the other pillars. But that's an evaluation methodology, right? I mean, at the end of the day.
If you say so. Sorry. And now we have Adi. I know you've talked about Adi plenty, right? And it's also funny that a lot of these frameworks and technologies for education, for learning design, have a lot to do with the evolution of the military. Just like the space race or a lot of stuff, appliances that we use, the US military has played a really influential role in a lot of these frameworks on the way we think and maybe we speak about e-learning design today.
Well, that's interesting. I had no idea that we would have found, I guess a connection to the military or the connection to, those kinds of things that, it's my brain is first shocked, but then, of course, that it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I think Adi, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think Adi borrows a lot of stuff from these lean startup or agile methods of like iteratively evaluating a process.
I don't know which came first, agile design or ADDIE, or if they are one and the same, right? I mean, at the end of the day, ADDIE is a process for, understanding needs and then designing and then, implementing and then testing and then evaluating and then kind of going back. It's this circular process where the real agile design is really about how can you get to that, or lean design would be, how can you get to that minimum viable product, right? Or that minimum viable outcome really quickly so that you can kind of test it and see if it works and then decide to make it more robust or whatnot. So I honestly don't know the time frame about the genesis of any of those ideologies, but because you have agile, you have lean, and then you have ADDIE, we're kind of really talking about three concepts that get to the same place, but in different ways. So
yeah,
guess who knows? I mean, Mark Pari, his whole talk last year at the eLearn Success Summit was about ADDIE. So there's one of our experts. He's in the community. So if you want to know, let's go ask him.
Let's go ask him. Don't listen to us. Listen to him. But yeah, I see this loop and I feel I read build, test, learn.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I think this is Moodle's philosophy or Moodle's
Constructivism for sure. Absolutely.
Foundational. I know there are subtle differences between constructivism and constructionism, but I always get them wrong. And last time I mentioned these, a lot of people were saying, no, actually, and they were explaining that to me. So hopefully that happens again. But they are all based on the principle that knowledge is built collectively, right? So, and I do talk a lot about this with like among friends and colleagues, and it's the fact that the social aspect of learning, or sometimes it's called the mastery method, or even the Singapore method, Singapore math, for example, are based on this process where it's designed, like classrooms and lessons are designed in such a way where the more advanced students have the responsibility of helping the students that are behind move forward. and only until there is a certain threshold that the lowest performing move up, nobody can move high forward. So it's, again, I mean,
is that a lowest common denominator problem then, though? If you have someone who lags behind in the social setting, does that not necessarily hold back the cohort, or no?
Well, interestingly enough, no, and it's actually exemplary, at least in PISA rankings, if you think that's important. But they add this. What I think what's interesting is that they give like the highest performance the responsibility of bringing them higher, and I think that generates other kinds of dynamics. So the high achievers don't feel that they're being set back, because it's actually they assume the responsibility, and I know there must be more than just telling them, oh, it's now your responsibility. No, there is a design involved that encourages like a different attitude around helping others. So
well, I mean, we've talked again, something that we've talked a lot about over the last 2 years, especially is peer learning, right? And the success of why being held accountable, why being able to share, why being able to connect with others within the learning environment really lifts up not only engagement but retention and outcomes as well. So this makes I guess I don't find any surprise here. So
yeah, and I don't know, going back to your point, I think it removes some kind of implicit competitiveness that may not be all that useful for the learning process. Yeah, like if I tell you what I know and you tell me what you know, we're both better off. Some kind of, something like that.
Sounds good.
And the final one, and of course it's not the final one, the final one, yeah. And I bundled them up.
Our good friend over at Motivational Technology is going to love this one, right? Yeah.
Sir Jeff. But he's also made me think that gamification, which he doesn't really like, or I mean, not the term, but what we understand currently by gamification, it's a very external process to the content, to whatever you're teaching, because it's trying to add all these external rewards, right? So the coins and the things, and there is always a question of how to weave the meaning of what you gain outside of the content of the lesson as part of the lesson itself. So, but he also admits that he's not like to talk about what happens inside a lesson. You need subject matter experts who have some understanding of how games work, or there's also a difference between game and play. Like play usually is like looser and doesn't really have rules, and you just let like people or kids I don't know, just I don't know, like improv. Whereas a game has rules, had goals, had outcomes, scorings, a lot of more stuff. But either way, you can create lessons that the content is presented in a gamified way. And I think that's a whole other kind of worms. But again, I think you can apply a lot of stuff from all the other science. I think video game design has been a big influence here too.
Sure, absolutely. Do you think, I was just going to ask, are these platform dependent or independent, I guess, are these all these theories and these approaches, because that's the word I'm looking for, would this approach work just as well in sort of an augmented reality as it would in a audio class, in a self-paced class, in a asynchronous class, online or offline? Or do we, are they situation specific in any case?
I guess that's a very current question with a very good answers. But it reminds me of Spider-Man because
Which one?
Homecoming,
Okay.
the one with Robert Downey Jr. because he was Peter was like complaining, or he wanted to keep the suit, and Iron Man took them. He was taking the suit out of him because he didn't behave or something, and he said like, "I'm nothing without the suit." And he said, "If you are nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it."
That's a good point.
Makes me think about technology. So if your lesson is nothing without technology, maybe you shouldn't be a designer.
Maybe you shouldn't be using it. Wow.
I
didn't know we were going to get so deep on office hours today. That's awesome. Fantastic.
And yeah, that is all for today. I was wondering if some analytics. I don't know if there's such a thing as analytics-based e-learning.
Well, I think, I think there has to be, simply because one of the pieces I'm interested in discussing at the design session on February 23rd is how AI plays a role in design, and how, AI is going to be based off data, right? And so predictive analytics and those kinds of things, can we design on the fly for student success or for learner success? I honestly, these are just kind of like, I'm making this up right now as I go along. And so I think there has to be a connection there, right? And at the end of the day as well, any good trainer, right, would say, look, before you do the training, you got to do a needs assessment, right? You got to say, look, what is it that we actually have to train on? What are the skills gaps, and what does the learning cohort actually need? And so you design the learning from the data of that assessment. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And again, like going back to the beginning, I wanted to call them schools or movements, but they are more like principles, and they are very compatible to a large extent. Like you could actually have a lesson that has all of the elements that we just mentioned. And of course, analytics can be a really big part of it. Something that you also see in the history of art and design is that technology does influence the possibilities of what people can do. Like imagine what Michelangelo could do with spray.
Oh, sure. Yeah, 100%. If the question of, what would Mozart do with, today's modern music studio? I mean, he may just run out of the room. I don't know. We'll see. Isn't that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? Oh, I guess that was Beethoven.
I haven't seen that.
I'm dating myself. I think that you weren't. Folks, this has been our office hours for this week. Christian, once again, thank you so much for all the effort that you put into these presentations and whatnot. Absolutely fantastic. Please come join us for the designer session at the eLearn Success Series. It's our first session coming up less than a month. We have some fantastic high caliber speakers for you. All tickets are free. Just go to eLearnSuccessSeries.com and you can get a free ticket there. Also come over to join us in the community, community.openlms.net, or bit.ly/eLearn community. And if you're listening to the recording of this, feel free to put a question. LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, we do see them and we're happy to respond. So until next time, we will see you then.
See you.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.